Welcome back. Welcome back to another one of our sessions, EDI Wednesday, where we at the Institute for Equity University Center lead thought leadership and discourse in equity, diversity, and inclusion and their intersections. This evening, we are delighted to be joined by Dr. Tamsin Bowers-Brown, Fellow of the Institute, but also Head of Engagement. Tamsin, I know you want us to talk about equity network and collaboration and higher education student success. But before we get into the seriousness of those topics, I wonder if you want to take a minute and just share with our audience a little bit about yourself and your work.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for inviting me onto the show. And yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about my background and my work so far. I won't go on for too long on that. I think the key thing that runs through it all is my passion for tackling inequity and injustice. So I've been in higher education for the past 23 years in various roles: researcher, lecturer, leadership, pedagogic practice, and director of equity. And now I'm working with you, Paul, as head of engagement. And I think the thing is that over this period of time, I've seen many changes in higher education. But the one thing that stays the same is that we still have these awful gaps between different groups of students that are because of the way that higher education has not changed significantly enough to recognise that it's actually built on a system of white supremacy, of ableism, of heteronormativity, and of inequity in social class and how we treat our students. So whilst we have got much better and things have changed and there's some brilliant practice going on across the sector, there is still much to be done. And that is what motivates me to stay in the sector, because I want to see that change happen in my lifetime.
Well, thank you very much. Those are some really big ticket items for us to start with: heteronormativity, ableism, white supremacy in education. But then the paradox of it is that you have said, you want to stay as part of the game. Is it that we have been bewitched by the system then?
Yeah, I guess so. And it seems such an enormous thing to take down the entire system. And I know, Paul, you're leading in doing that work. But there's students that are in those institutions right now, and they are going to graduate potentially with degrees that are, so Black students with degrees that aren't as high as their white counterparts, not because of any fault of their own, but because of the practices of the institutions. And as a leader within higher education, I still feel that I have enough experience to keep on with addressing that from within, if you like.
Fascinating, and it's a very, very good position to have. But also, what I hear underlying your views here is the need to have hope. But then, when we look at the statistics coming out with the issues of access for working class people, including white young men, when we look at the degree awarding gap for Black and Asian and mixed heritage students, these are perennial problems. So how can we remain hopeful in the face of these perennial problems that are indexed to structural inequality?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have hope, then you have to leave, don't you? You have to move away. I think the issue is that there's a lot of things happening in higher education now beyond awarding gaps, beyond continuation gaps, beyond gaps in graduate opportunities, that suggest that higher education cannot continue as it is. It's not fit for purpose in the way it was like in the 1960s, when only 6% of people went into higher education. It's very different for young people, even for mature students going into higher education right now, because of the accessibility of information at their fingertips. And so we have to really critically evaluate what the purpose of higher education is. How do we how do we help our academics to understand that what happened many years ago isn't perhaps the right way to work right now? So what are the opportunities for interdisciplinarity, for big global challenges that we're seeing being highlighted in some universities now, which I think is the right way to go. It's not to say that the disciplinary background of people is no longer, worth maintaining, but how can we look at those disciplinary contexts through a multiplicity of lenses? And how can we work to better collaborate between different subjects so that when people go out into the world of work or out into society, that they're used to working with each other and there isn't this kind of competition or misunderstanding of how each other addresses different problems. So collaboration, interdisciplinarity, huge changes.
I'll push you a little bit further there around the collaboration piece because
Mm.
we at the Institute for Equity University Center, we are members of IHE, Independent Higher Education. But a lot of people still feel like the traditional universities are the only place to study and almost look down on the critical role of this sector, IHE, the independent higher education sector, and the role that organizations like ours play. And what challenge then, or what invitation would you put back to traditional institutions who, under the banner of collaboration then?
I think there's been some really good examples of collaboration in higher education where perhaps the OFS have backed that collaboration. So I'm thinking about the National Collaborative Outreach Partnerships, where groups of universities do work together to support access to higher education. But then I have to ask the question, why isn't this happening in lots of other areas? So if we're thinking about participation and reducing awarding gaps, that shouldn't be an issue of competition. Like, why are we not collaborating more effectively across universities to understand better what's happening?
But
And I know
my question is about why aren't universities collaborating with private higher education institutions like ours?
I think there's still that kind of idea that knowledge is only valued if it comes from a certain place,
Elitism,
and
isn't it?
that it's elitism,
Mm.
and that hasn't served us well. So even thinking about someone that is in the community that doesn't have a degree, why is their valued knowledge and life experience not valued as much as someone who has got a degree? And it's just rethinking how we value different types of knowledges, and higher education has to do the same thing. Russell Group universities have to recognise the value that independent higher education providers bring to to society, and how we can collaborate. And thinking about the Institute for Equity University Centre and the work that we do, and the codification of a new subject discipline, what can other universities learn from that?
Mm. Mm. Absolutely, and that is a really important thing because so many of the independent higher education members are niche specialist institutions that bigger universities should be collaborating with instead of seeing them as competitors and trying to push them out of business and so on. So I think you've hit the nail on the head there in taking us back to the 1800s around intellectual elitism in England and how intellectual elitism created social elitism and social elitism created political elitism and so we are still seeing this right across our society until this day. So it's almost like we go through these episodic periods, but the more things change the more they remain the same. And I wonder if you've got
Mm.
any advice then for people in power, both within higher education but also in politics.
There's some brilliant academics. There are some brilliant academics doing brilliant work with students, and often their ideas remain in kind of the echo chamber of the people that they're working with. Politicians invite them in, listen, but listen with the intent to genuinely hear what is being said,
Mm,
and not dismiss it as somehow being, oh, these are the oversensitive people or these are the woke people. There are
mm,
people with brilliant ideas. We just need to listen. But it's whether or not the intent or the desire is there to want to change the status quo. And I don't believe that there is. And so, people keep doing what they do in their areas, trying to spread like the information and the ways of teaching, or their knowledge. But there has to be the will from government to actually listen to these different perspectives, and to want to create a more collaborative society. And that is not what we've got right now.
Of course, and I think you're right. In the face of accusations of wokery, um, we need to see leaders who don't mind being called woke, because
Mm-hmm.
wokeness is about being alert and attuned to the social injustices bedeviling our society and wanting to use your privilege and your position to do something about it. It's not about being on the left or the left of center. It is about having a conscience and knowing that these things are wrong, and I've got a responsibility in trying to make the world a fairer place. So I think you have really said something powerful there, that this misconstruction of what it means to be woke, and the imperative of leadership in making their organizations a lot more attuned to social injustices.
Mm.
My producer is alerting me that we are coming up to a break, but I'm going to try and push on for a little, for at least one other question before we take a break. Um, you talk about collaboration, and I will probably pick this up after the
Mm.
break as well. But you talk about interdisciplinary collaboration and institutional to institutional collaboration, and I wondered whether you could talk a little bit more about what that could look like in terms of a geographical partnership, or a disciplinary partnership. I mean, we've seen two universities down in southeast London have just um, uh, um, decided to merge and all of that kind of thing. And I wonder if you think there is this is something, you know the higher education sector should be thinking to do with private institutions like ours and public institutions or niche institutions plus law. I don't know. What do you think?
I
More
think
of this?
I think it depends what's directing it, and we know that there's a financial crisis across the higher education sector right now, which might be the reason that organisations are choosing that to collaborate or to merge. But I think we have to look more broadly than that about other reasons that we might want to collaborate. So how can we improve the life chances of people that are coming into our institutions by having these really strong networks across issues that matter to all of us? And whether we're an institution that is, developing curriculum, and seeing that the issues of social justice apply to us, whatever our disciplinary background, whether it be chemistry, maths, sociology. But actually, what if we applied that across institutions too? So what
Mm.
if we applied that approach to say, actually, your students may be at this independent higher education institute, they might be at a Russell Group institution, but what are the things that we have in common in terms of pushing forward that societal hope for collaboration and for social justice? And if we can partner on things like that, where there shouldn't be any need for competition, I think we can move towards a stronger community cohesion, social justice, and equitable society. So I would strongly push for something like that.
Well, can I just say, here at the Institute for Equity University Center, we have codified the field of EDI into
Mm-hmm.
a field of academic study and a field of professional practice. And big universities out there, big corporations out there, we are open for collaboration. We very much believe that it is better to collaborate than to compete, especially on EDI issues, because tackling all the isms in our society requires a common enemy approach. And so we are open to collaboration. So thank you for that point, Dr. Tamsin Bowers-Brown. Before we go to the break, I just want to summarize quickly the key messages coming from your really powerful contribution. The more things change, the more they remain the same. That is a crushing indictment that we need to get over these ebbs and flows and these episodic spirals. We talk about heteronormativity and ableism and white supremacy, things which are very much dominant in the traditional UK higher education institution. We talk about the fact that those of us who are fighting against the system of inequity and injustice are almost locked into this system. We are bewitched by the system. UK higher education is in a mess, a financial mess, and we need to get back to the state of asking ourselves the question: what is the purpose of higher education? You talked about interdisciplinarity and collaboration. We talked about intellectual elitism. How do we value all kinds of knowledges and experiences? We talk about leadership and will in the face of accusation of wokery. And we talk about collaborate on values and not just on economic exigencies. So what is the purpose of these collaboration? Fascinating contribution, Dr. Tamsin Bowers-Brown. Can't wait to hear the second half of our conversation. Producer, over to you.
My friends, welcome to the Institute for Equity University Center. I want to talk to you a little bit about our institutional support package. Many of you have heard me talk before about our training package, but not so much about our institutional support. In our institutional support package, we do a lot of audits, curriculum audits, policy audits, textual and material audits. So we audit books for publishers and for organizations that want to produce material. This is another area of our work that we want you to get involved with. If you're doing a research project and you want somebody to sit on your board as your project advisory board, or if you are just thinking about embedding EDI in your organization and you're unsure, make us your accountability partner. We will sit with you, we'll hold hands with you, we will walk with you and walk beside you through the process as partners in the great struggle and the great opportunity.
Oh, welcome back. Welcome back. What a fascinating conversation we've been having with Dr. Tamsin Bowers-Brown, Fellow of the Institute for Equity University Center and Head of Engagement. Lots of stuff to talk about on equity networks, collaboration, higher education, student success. And it's just been a riveting conversation. 23 years of experience in 30 minutes. Oh, we are so lucky to have Tamsin in this conversation. Tamsin, I want to move the conversation a little bit further and talk about equity networks and just networking. I know we've been talking about collaboration and we've been talking about partnerships, but networks are kind of a specialized piece of in work approach, and I wonder whether you want to talk with us a little bit about that, how you see that within higher education, but also how you see that within our work here at the Institute.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am lucky to have been part of a number of different networks during my career, whether they are through things like the British Sociological Association or NARUPI, and there's often an opportunity to meet with people who are, doing similar work, share experiences. But in my last role, where I was director of the Office for Institutional Equity, I was meeting people who were saying, actually, it's often quite a lonely job. It's often quite a lonely job working to embed equity in an organisation. And what is really helpful is to physically be in a room with other people and offer each other sustenance and conversation and share our key concerns, the things that we're excited about, and work together to try and push forward some key agendas. And I have learned so much from brilliant people doing brilliant work, and have really valued the time that I've spent with them through these opportunities, through these network opportunities. And the network kind of ends up giving back to each and every person that participates in it through, those shared conversations, the opportunity to pick up the phone and just discuss some issues with them. And it can also be really powerful for a region or for a city. So the network that I chaired over in Leeds, for example, we were able to come together and make joint statements that then all our organisations subscribe to. So when there was a female MP that was going through misogyny, through racism, and it was in relation to some comments that had been made by one of our local MPs. And we worked together. We created a statement of solidarity to show support for our Black female students across all our learning organisations. And we put that out as a collaborative. And that was much more powerful than one of our institutions doing it alone. So that kind of solidarity that an equity network can bring, again, is really important.
And that solidarity effect, I think, is really, really important.
Mm.
And I think that's what we are trying to embody here at the Institute for Equity University Centre. And that's why I made a point earlier that we are open for collaboration with Cambridge, with Oxford, with the Russell groups, with the million plus universities, with the red brick universities, with the million plus universities, with any organization who subscribe to our values and want to advance racial and social justice in society and in organizations. So we don't have a hierarchy of institution with any organizations, with big corporates, with small charities, with big charities, with small organizations. It doesn't matter. We want to collaborate with you. So I think that's really important, the solidarity effect, because we're working towards this common agenda. I wonder then if you could talk to us a little bit about where you might have seen this. I know you spoke about Leeds. Where else you might have seen some good examples of this? Because I think some people are probably scared. Some people don't understand it. Some people don't know how to go about it. Whether you have some other examples that you could share.
In terms of networks that I've been a part of, or networks that are emerging?
Both networks that are emerging. I mean, we are on the cusp of launching our own network here. And you could talk about that. You could talk about where you've seen it work. But I know many people are saying, well, I don't know what to do, but you describe it so beautifully. You know, you talk about EDI work is lonely, and network helps to break that loneliness. And you talk about EDI networks promote cross-disciplinarity and then that solidarity effect. So I think you're really saying some really critical things here that some people might just want to get behind a network or a network like ours.
Yeah, I think for people that are in higher education, it's probably, quite a standard thing that there will be special interest groups that you get involved with, and that with like-minded people, you discuss similar strands of work. What's different about equity networks that go beyond higher education is that opportunity to collaborate with different sectors, with business, with public health organisations, because actually the people that we are interacting with in all of our organisations, our institutions, are networked, are related, are, experiencing similar issues. And so for me, the benefit of being in a network that is broader than higher education is that you're speaking to people that aren't necessarily in your same echo chamber. And whilst that can be really helpful when you're in higher education, there's also a benefit to listening to the people who are working with learners that come into your university, or with businesses that are working with the students that might be working in your university. Or if you're in a regional area and you have a lot of businesses that, are on the brink of developing their EDI work and don't know where to start, there's a really good purpose of bringing people together into a space to kind of have that support, that compassion, that curiosity, that collaboration, but also the challenge. I think the challenge is really important. And, Nova Reid talks about how sometimes people can come together in their anti-racism work and white solidarity will come out. And that might come out as, oh, they didn't really mean that. Oh, no, you're right. And a kind of soothing effect. And I think it's really important that with whatever type of equity work that you are in, you are asking those challenging questions to not keep you in that comfort zone, but to make you sit with your discomfort and use it to propel you to a new place that will actually make change for the people for whom your service is not working for or needs to work better for. So yeah, it's about compassion, curiosity, and challenge. And I'm excited to be developing the West Yorkshire Collaborative Equity Network to do just that, with business organisations, with educational institutions if they want to join, with public sector organisations, but largely probably a focus on those business organisations that probably don't have the opportunity to get involved with an equity network or haven't in the past.
Thank you very much, Tamsin. And I think that's really, really so important. I mean, your point there about, networks help people to promote curiosity and challenge and compassion, just human decency and understanding, really.
Humanity.
He- Absolutely, and how do we move organizations to a space of solidarity for equity and solidarity for justice rather than solidarity based on our class or solidarity based on our ethnicity, solidarity based on our any of our identity characteristics, but solidarity based around the ideals that we all hold, justice and equity. So that notion of issues-based network is really, really important. So as you say, it doesn't become an echo chamber um, of of um, of people with particular academic interests, but actually issues-based. So you're working towards challenging issues and dismantling systems of oppression. My producer is telling me that we are coming up to the end, but I wondered if I could be cheeky and ask one final question,
Okay.
and that and that is, how then can we, get people involved into this collaborative space, whether it's business? You talk about our own network being developed in the Institute for Equity, the West Yorkshire um, Collaborative Equity Network, and but there is still a hindrance, still a barrier, a suspicion from business leaders, educational leaders, organizational leaders, and many feel like the networks take more than they give. So how can we get people to see the value, all of the things you described, um, for the network, the compassion, the challenge, the curiosity, the support? How can we get people to want to use network as part of the collective will to transform their organization and also to develop their practice and their people? How can we move past those barriers?
So I think it starts with anyone who runs a business, owns a business, is maybe the HR director, asking that question of, can you wholeheartedly say that everyone in your organization is thriving? What do they need to thrive? What do they need to make the organization work in a way for them that makes them do their best work, that serves their communities? And I don't think there'll be any business or organization that has got everything completely right. And if they have, come along to the network too, because we definitely want to hear from you. But I think it can be daunting if you're an organization that hasn't really gone beyond the tick boxing. We need to get our pay gap report done. We need to make sure we've got our policy uploaded to the website. You may have done those things, but what's the next step then? And I also hear about institutions that are doing this work really well. They've got their gold badge or their gold award, and they think, right, well, then I can stop now. Well, no, you can't, because once you've got it, it doesn't mean that work has stopped. We have to think about ways that we can continue. And actually, if you are in that position, perhaps you have a responsibility to other organizations to come and contribute that knowledge and to have that discussion and, to help progress societally, not just within your own organization. So I would say just come along, come to a meeting, see what you think. And
Fascinating, and what an open invitation. Come along, because together we can achieve so much more. Together we can make a difference. And I heard you also saying, leaders need to be humble in seeking out support. What a fascinating contribution from Dr. Tamsin Bowers-Brown this morning, reminding us of the need for collaboration, reminding us of the need for compassion, for challenging each other, for curiosity, for seeing education as not a space to reinforce ableism and white supremacy and heteronormativity, but a space where all should be welcome and all should be elevated. What a fascinating reminder of the role of networks, the role of leadership and will, the role of solidarity, and the role of interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary work. Our network is open here at the Institute for Equity University Center. Tamsin is leading that network, so let me just say that. But we are open for collaboration with big businesses, small businesses, in health, in education, in the military, in the police, in charities, you name it. EDI is everybody's business, and we are here as the center ground holding that space for you and for all of us. Tamsin, I'm going to wind us out of this virtual room, but
Mhm.
producer just reminded me I need to ask you the quick fire questions. So just three or
Oh,
four
gosh.
quick fire questions so our listeners and our viewers can get a sense of who you are. So, what was your last Google search?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. Can't remember. I think it's probably about getting some new trainers for running. I think it was like running trainers or something.
Oh, great. What's your favorite dessert?
Probably sticky toffee pudding.
Oh, dear.
The most
Right.
unhealthiest of puddings.
Well, everybody has a vice, eh? uh, what's your favorite uh, place to visit in the world?
Probably Scotland, and somewhere remote with like nice sea and cliffs, and yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. And finally, what's your favorite four-letter word?
My favourite four-letter word. I have no idea. I have no
it,
idea.
it could be
Book.
food. It could be book.
Book.
It could be book. It could be book. Well, well, well. There you have it, colleagues. From the mouth of Dr. Tamsin Bowers-Brown. So much to reflect on this morning. And we're ending up with her favorite four-letter word, a book. Thank you
It
very
should have
much.
been
And
hopeful, shouldn't it?
hope.
Should have been hope.
We'll take that as well. Hope. Hope.